This is a Neko Rig. It's a piece of plastic, like a Senko, with a weight in the bottom. I use a screw rather than a nail. There's an O-ring that many people use on wacky worms, and when you hook it, you actually get some of the plastic of the bait as you hook it. You can also see that the hook is at least halfway or more up the worm. As I bounce it along the bottom, it kind of mimics a feeding minnow or possibly a crayfish if I had a darker, a brown plastic on there. I also have a weedless hook. It's a weedless wacky hook. You don't have to have a weedless, but in the lake I'm fishing there happens to be a lot of weeds. The second bait, this is called a Ned Rig, made by Z-Man. This is the 4-inch model, and it is also weedless. And you can see this has a quicker fall than the Neko did. The Neko Rig kind of floated a little bit. The Ned Rig, most people like to pause it, and it's usually on the pause where the fish will hit. So I'll give it 2 or 3 hops to try to get a fish attention, and then I'll dead stick it for 10, 15, 20 seconds. Again, very, very good finesse bait. Usually this is used in rocks and rubble, but you can use it in weeds, especially with the little weed guard. The next bait is a Shakey Head, and they come in lots of different styles. Now I've rigged this with a Z-Man TRD. You can rig it with lots of different types of worms. There are smaller Shakey Heads. This one's a little bit big. I believe it's an 1/8 ounce. And because I have the hook Texas rigged, it's very, very weedless. Again, I'm showing you this on sand in shallow water just to make it clearer and easier to see. Again, Shakey Heads, you can bounce it, you can pop it like I'm doing here. You can dead stick it and just jiggle the tip of your rod. There's endless ways to work this. It works very, very good on rocks and rubble as well as in weeds. The next bait, this is a drop shot. And the way I have it hooked here is, I don't know the correct name for it, I call it weedless. The point of the hook is just barely at the tip of the plastic. And this is a Dream Shot by Strike King. Now I apologize, a lot of this is at the top end of the frame, but as it gets closer to the camera you'll see it. So you got the weight. You can have that weight anywhere from 1 foot to even 3 feet below the worm, depending on the conditions. I'm probably working this a little faster than I typically would. I think the biggest mistake people make with a drop shot is they overwork the bait. And that's slow motion, just showing the movement of the Dream Shot. You really don't need to move it much to get some action. Now I'm taking the same Dream Shot and I'm going to rig it wacky, just to show you the difference. And I honestly think that the other rig, the weedless rig, it looked a little more natural, but you can wacky rig your drop shots. If you're using something like a Senko, I would maybe go to the wacky, unless of course I'm fishing in weeds, then I'd go with the weedless rigging. And now this is a crosstail shad, I believe it's called, by Jackal. It's a 4-inch model. And this first is weedless as well. And this really surprised me. I was really surprised at the action. It's much better than I thought. It's subtle. And I'm barely moving. Well, I'm probably over moving this, but with very little movement, it still undulates. Remember, there's always current under the water, so these baits are going to be moving on their own, and there's wave action, so just the rocking of the boat will move the worm. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned a few things.